Welcome to day 21 of our epic 40-day 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip as we travel for 250 miles through the incredible Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. We visit a World War I memorial, which is a replica of what Stonehenge would have looked like, and followed up with dramatic waterfalls and adventures in laundromats. We also experienced the frustration of timed entry. We started the day with breakfast at Mama Jane's Pancake House and the Dolls. The diner stands out for its unique interior. The walls are packed with biker plaques, novelty signs, and vintage American memorabilia. Their pancakes are legendary for being as big as dinner plates while remaining incredibly fluffy and moist. It also had the cheekiest waitress of our entire trip. We next headed 25 miles west to the Maryhill Stonehenge Memorial in Maryhill, Washington. Upon crossing the Columbia River, I had made my way to the 50th state I had visited. And we're crossing the Columbia River into Washington State to see the first part of our tour today of the Columbia River Gorge. We're starting easterly part. This is our first stop at the Columbia River Gorge, and it's the Stonehenge Memorial. It's a replica of what Stonehenge was supposed to look like, and it's in honor of World War I veterans. And there you see a view of the Columbia River going into the Columbia River Gorge. This informational plaque reads, "The structure before you is the first monument in our nation to military personnel who gave their lives in World War I. Memorializing 13 young Klickitat County men, it also serves as a lasting reminder of the works of Samuel Hill, patron of this region. He established a town site here with a post office, hotel, general store, nearly 10 miles of experimental roads, and the Maryhill Museum, 3 miles to the west, all on his own land. His tomb is 50 miles distant on the opposite side of this monument." The design duplicates in size in original form England's famous Stonehenge on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. When Hill, a Quaker pacifist, visited England during the 1914-18 conflict, he saw Stonehenge and was told it had been used for human sacrifices to pagan gods. He remarked, "After all our civilization, the flower of humanity is still being sacrificed to the god of war on fields of battle." From that inspiration came this monument, built by Hill. On July 4th, 1918, the altar stone was dedicated. The full structure was completed and dedicated on May 30th, 1929. Today, the sacrifice legend is generally discredited. Current belief is that Stonehenge was a device used by Stone Age astronomers to measure time and mark seasons of the year by observing positions of the sun and moon. This memorial plaque reads, "In memory of the soldiers and sailors of Klickitat County who gave their lives in defense of their country. This monument is erected in the hope that others inspired by the examples of their valor and their heroism may share in the love of liberty and burn with that fire of patriotism which death alone can quench." And there are a lot of windmills up here. It is a little breezy. This is the view of the Columbia River from Stonehenge. This stunning vista captures the Columbia River Gorge looking down from the bluff at Maryhill Stonehenge Memorial. The perspective looks southwest across the arid landscape of the eastern end of the canyon. Here is the view along I-84 after crossing back into Oregon. We're currently following the Columbia River, and we'll soon unofficially be in the Columbia River Gorge. Here we are passing through Deschutes River State Recreational Area. We are now passing through Solillo Park, a recreational area managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Passing through Mayor's State Park. And now we're headed to Horsetail Falls in Columbia River Gorge. We are now about a mile from Mosier, Oregon. Here's more of the Columbia River. We were in desperate need of doing laundry, and there was a laundromat in White Salmon, Washington. In order to get there, we had to pass over the Hood River White Salmon Interstate Bridge, a narrow 4,418-foot metal truss bridge. The bridge has a fully electronic tolling system. There are no physical toll booths to collect cash on site. We had no idea how to pay the toll. Unfortunately, there was a long line at the laundromat, so we elected to hold off until later in the day. We were fortunate that there was a visitor center on the Washington side of the river near the bridge. All the visitor centers we had passed on the Oregon side had been closed. We were finally able to get some information about the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. One of the things we found out was that the most popular waterfall, Multnomah Falls, required a timed entry to view. The earliest available entry was at 4 p.m., so we booked it. We also found out about the toll. Since we didn't have the necessary transponder, it would be a pay-by-plate invoice. Drivers must pay online within 14 days of crossing using the Port of Hood River online payment tool to avoid extra fees. A woman at the center gave us the information. She told us they were notorious for not contacting people until the toll had amassed huge amounts of late fees. All in all, a very helpful visitor center. As we made our way to Horsetail Falls, we passed through Viento State Park. We pulled off of Interstate 84 onto the historic Columbia River Highway, a legendary scenic roadway winding through the Columbia River Gorge. Constructed between 1913 and 1922, it was America's first planned scenic highway, celebrated as the King of Roads and a National Historic Landmark for the masterful stonework and integration into the natural cliffs. Today it is divided into distinct drivable sections and a car-free state trail for hikers and cyclists. The waterfall corridor is a lush stretch packed with roadside cascades featuring Latourell Falls, Bridal Falls, Horsetail Falls, Wakeena Falls, and the iconic 620-foot Multnomah Falls. Our first stop in the corridor was Horsetail Falls, a spectacular 176-foot waterfall. It is named for its fanned-out cascading shape. It drops in a distinct horse's tail directly into a large plunge pool, making it one of the most unique and easily accessible natural landmarks in Columbia River Gorge. We're now at Horsetail Falls of the Columbia River Gorge, Scenic area. This is Horsetail Falls. Horsetail Falls is located on Horsetail Creek. The falls drop over a cut over the columnar basalt cliff within the Oneonta Gorge. Our next stop was Wakeena Falls. We bypassed Multnomah Falls because our timed entry wasn't until 4 p.m. and it was still morning. Wakeena Falls is a spectacular 242-foot tiered waterfall. Its name derives from a Yakima word meaning most beautiful. We're now at Wakeena Falls, Columbia River Gorge. This educational trailhead sign is titled Discovered Wakeena Falls. It details the unique, diverse ecosystem of the Columbia River Gorge watershed, stretching from rainforest to desert conditions. The center of the sign features a detailed geographic trail map. Mary was not interested in hiking the Wakeena Falls Trail, so I hiked only about a quarter of a mile of the trail to get a better view of the falls. The first photos are taken from the start of the trail near the parking lot. They are views of Wakeena Creek at the end of the cascade. I am not sure what vantage points the remainder of the photos and videos of Wakeena Falls are from with respect to the trail. Here's a little bit more of Wakeena Falls. And from here, you can see it flowing down. I'm not going to climb any further than this. We next made our way to Bridal Falls. This educational plaque located at Bridal Falls State Park in Oregon provides maps and historical context for visitors. First, the two main trails, the Bridal Falls Trail, which leads to a scenic waterfall via a steep path, and the Bridal Falls Interpretive Trail, a paved path offering views of the Columbia River. Historically, this area was the site of a lumber mill operated by the Bridal Lumber Company, which utilized the river for transport. Bridal Falls is a stunning 120-foot two-tiered waterfall located within the Bridal Falls State Scenic Viewpoint. The Bridal Falls Trail is a short, easily accessible 0.6-mile out-and-back hike. It descends steeply through a lush, fern-filled forest via dirt switchbacks and stairs. After crossing a wooden arch bridge over Bridal Creek, a short climb brings you to a dedicated wooden viewing platform right in front of the roaring cascade. The waterfall cascades under a historic 1914 bridge. This is the location of the wooden arch bridge over Bridal Creek. And we're on the trail to Bridal Falls. I'm sure that's not all of it. We now arrived at the viewing platform for Bridal Falls. And here's the final stairs up to the falls. And this is Bridal Falls. The falls drop in two major steps, split into an upper falls and a lower falls, with a total height of the waterfall at 120 feet. The two drops are due to a zone of more easily eroded basalt defile at the base of the upper falls. A massive basalt boulder detached from the cliff and lies in the creek along the pool below. Here is Bridal Creek as it makes its way north to the Columbia River after the falls. And here's from another vantage point. Underground springs from Larch Mountain are the year-round source of water for the waterfall, augmented by spring runoff from the mountain's snowpack and rainwater during the other seasons. This spring is the source of Bridal Creek. During the years of logging upstream of Bridal Creek, the river ran dry and the waterfall had disappeared. Once logging ceased, the river returned to its course, restoring the waterfall to its current feature. The historic Columbia River Highway passes over Bridal Falls on a bridge, the Bridal Falls Bridge, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places as a contributing structure. It is a skewed 100-foot reinforced concrete span and is unique in its design, in which its solid railings serve as a continuous beam and transverse deck support members function as deck girders. Our next stop was at Latourell Falls. This is Latourell Falls. Latourell Falls is a stunning 249-foot single-drop waterfall located in Guy W. Talbot State Park. And here's another viewpoint of Latourell Falls. The falls are highly celebrated for its dramatic straight-down plunge over a massive wall of columnar basalt cliffs that are distinctly splashed with bright neon chartreuse lichen. For some reason, we failed to take the flat paved 0.3 mile out and back walk to the lower falls viewpoint, which would have placed us directly at the misty base of the massive 249-foot drop. As we had a few hours to burn before our timed entry to Multnomah Falls, we decided to head into Portland to do our long overdue laundry. As we settled into a laundromat, we discovered that it did not take coins or credit cards, and we needed to pay through an app. After struggling for 20 minutes to install the app, we thankfully found an attendant who was able to take our credit card without installing the app. Very frustrating clothes washing, but we finally got it done. As we drove around Portland to get back to the highway, there did seem to be a lot of people living on the streets out of grocery carts. We now made our way back to Multnomah Falls for our timed entry. When we arrived at what I thought was the parking lot, we were informed by the attendant that the timed entry was not for this lot, and we would need to wait until a spot opened up, and then we would need to pay additional money to park there. He told me that the timed entry parking was at the other side of the river and about 2 miles away. At this point, we decided to call it a day and never made it to Multnomah Falls, the most celebrated of the falls in the Columbia River Gorge. We later found out that the parking attendant wasn't quite giving the full story. When he said it was on the other side of the river, I thought he meant it was across the Columbia River. In truth, it was across Multnomah Creek, which flows into the Columbia River from the falls. The main parking lot is located between I-84 East and West and is free, but is only accessible from I-84. It's only about 1/10 of a mile away from the parking lot we tried to use, but you do have to drive about 10 miles to the I-84 ramp and then double back. Because we used GPS, it took us directly to the falls and not the desired parking lot. The small parking lot across from the Multnomah Falls Lodge that we tried to use is privately owned by the Union Pacific Railroad and leased to private operator Sasquatch Shuttle. Apparently the state has been battling with them for some time about their exorbitant pricing. At this point, we just wanted to get to a motel and relax. We drove to Longview, Washington, where we spent the night. This is my souvenir pin from the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. I have added it to my faux Rangers hat. Mary and I thank you for watching day 21 of our 2025 Pacific Northwest road trip, where we explored the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. This proved to be one of the least satisfying days of the trip. While I had made extensive plans for most of the trip, we had decided to wing it on the days between leaving my cousin Tina's house and our arrival at Paradise Inn in Mount Rainier National Park. Although we did see beautiful waterfalls in the gorge, we missed seeing the most iconic, Multnomah Falls. Although I was aware of the timed entry, it was supposed to be over for the season. We only knew about the extension of the timed entry because of the dynamic message signs on the highway. Recreation.gov did not give instructions on where the parking was, and since we didn't know the name of the parking area, we relied on GPS to get us there. Equally frustrating was the lack of visitor center on the Oregon side. The one thing we did find in the Dalles was closed. The gorge was amazing and probably warranted at least another day to properly enjoy it, or at least better planning. It's not an area to fly by the seat of your pants for a visit. We hope you'll join us for day 22, where we visit Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument and meet a Bigfoot researcher before settling for the night in Paradise Inn in Mount Rainier National Park.